Hey everybody, so I want to chat a little bit about shoulder joints and swordsmanship. This can apply to probably any swordsmanship, certainly longsword, sword and buckler, the medieval set of things. I don't know that I would feel the same necessarily about Renaissance swordsmanship as far as rapiers, etc., because it's not my focus of study. So this may or may not apply to you. If that's what you study. But that being said, let's talk a little bit about some problems you can run into and injuries that you can cause to yourself when doing swordsmanship. So just here on the mat, I'm just going to try to show you a little bit about what I can do with my shoulder and have done with my shoulder. It's a really terrible plan. All right. So first up, when I am not thinking about it, my shoulder set is like this. So you can see here that I definitely have a forward cant to my shoulder, and you can see that along the back as well. That my shoulder blades are separated from my spine by a good bit of distance. Now I can correct that by thinking about it and engaging these muscles here to bring my scapula back where it ought to be. And again, from the side, that looks like this, all right? And you see a whole bunch of changes in my neck from my, standard American keyboard position to where it ought to be, all right? So how does this apply to swordsmanship? What do we do with that? Well, number one, when our shoulders are naturally wanting to come slightly forward, that is pulling this just ever so slightly out of socket. Not a lot, right? I can still work with it, but it's just enough that when I do enough swordsmanship, I'll start to get strain across my upper back and up into my neck. And in fact, I have some restriction leaning my head right now because I haven't attended to my body the way I ought to. The other thing that happens, particularly with swordsmen, swordswomen, who are of smaller stature, is that we're trying to get those just few inches that we're short when we're fighting our taller opponents. So what we might do when we go to strike with our sword is that we might extend our arm, all right? So this extension here, again, you can see it. I've pulled my upper arm somewhat out of socket into kind of this long point position. And this is something that I can do to get myself a little bit of reach, right? But again, you see this tension that pulls across my neck as I do that. Excuse me, gotta fix that. So I would recommend that you start thinking about engaging back here into your scapula. Don't let that bad boy wing out, right? Don't let all this go flying. Instead, keep it back so that when you strike through, your long point is here, okay? So right now I'm creating a lot of tension to kind of show this backward, and I may be even going too far. But again, that reach versus that reach, okay? And that's just me extending. I'm thinking about extending my bicep versus pulling it where it's supposed to be, okay? And that makes just a huge difference in your strike. One thing, those of you that do Messer, you might find when you go to do the Vinker in particular, that motion from up above to that extension with that hand turned and then through here, that if you let that fly and overtrain it, it will start to suck for you really badly. So again, keep that under control. Keep it back in place. There are quite a few stretches and exercises you can do to help with this and keep things back under control. So again, as just Americans, we drive a lot, right? And we type on keyboards and we look at cell phones and tablets and books. And so we're always in kind of this position. So that natural forward cant that we have developed is problematic. So think about, right, that you want to roll your arms back, your shoulders back, but without jutting your ribs. So it isn't this, right? That's just putting all this pressure right here, which I really don't need. Instead, it's just this, okay? So try to keep your ribs from going anywhere and spread your chest. The other thing you can do is, as you're developing your pecs, remember to develop your back. So doing reverse flies, doing all that sort of stuff is great for developing that. As well as you might consider taking a tennis ball, a racquetball, a baseball, whatever you have around, and putting it against a wall and then running that along your upper pectoral muscles like this, up under your collarbone, right? To stretch these muscles out and give your shoulders a chance to get back and to get your upper arms back into socket where they ought to be, instead of being constantly pulled with this forward rotation. Anyways, that's just some thoughts from the gym this morning. I hope this helps. Nice to chat with you. Bye-bye.